Hey everyone, I'm Kevin, and welcome to History Rewind. We're diving deep into the past, uncovering the stories that shaped our world. And today we're joined by the brilliant Jenny to unpack a truly remarkable life, that of Queen Elizabeth I.
It's a fascinating period of history, Kevin.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're right, Elizabeth I's story is full of twists and turns you'd hardly believe.
It really is.
Yeah.
We tend to picture Queen Elizabeth like at the height of her power, right?
Yeah.
The Elizabethan age, all that dazzling art and global influence.
Right.
But her journey to the throne was anything but smooth.
Oh, absolutely not.
It was a real-life drama,
Yeah.
full of family betrayals,
Yeah.
religious turmoil, and even like a terrifying stint in the Tower of London.
It's true. To really understand the strength and shrewdness she displayed as a ruler, we have to go back to the very beginning. Her childhood and early adulthood were a masterclass in resilience and strategy.
It's wild to think about Jenny, Elizabeth's birth. Way back in 1533, wasn't met with the celebration you might expect.
Right.
In fact, it was a huge disappointment to her father, King Henry VIII.
He was absolutely fixated on having a son, you see.
Right.
A male heir was considered essential to secure the Tudor dynasty.
Of course.
And in Henry's mind, the future of England itself.
So Elizabeth enters the world with this almost impossible burden of expectation on her tiny shoulders.
Yeah.
It makes you think how much pressure she must have felt even as a baby.
Absolutely. And we can't forget the political and religious earthquake happening at the same time.
Oh, right.
This wasn't just any king.
Yeah.
Henry VIII was willing to completely reshape England to get what he wanted.
Complete.
He broke from the Catholic Church, divorced his first wife, Catherine of Aragon,
Right.
all in pursuit of that elusive male heir.
And that's where Elizabeth's mother, Anne Boleyn, comes into the picture.
Yes.
Talk about walking into a pressure cooker.
She became the center of Henry's world, at least for a time.
Right.
But tragically, Anne got caught in the gears of Henry's ambition and the dangerous political turmoil of the English Reformation.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking story.
It is.
Anne was accused of treason, adultery, even incest, like charges that historians now believe were largely fabricated.
Sadly, at that time, accusations were often enough.
Yeah.
When Elizabeth was just 2 years old, Anne was executed.
Oh, gosh.
Imagine the impact of such a loss at such a young age.
I can't imagine.
And it didn't end there. Elizabeth was declared illegitimate and stripped of her princess title.
Oh, wow.
It's almost unfathomable, isn't it, to go through that as a kid? But this is where Elizabeth's story takes, like, a surprising turn.
Okay.
Despite being deemed illegitimate, kind of cast aside by the court,
Right.
she received a truly remarkable education.
Really.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to believe, given the time period.
I know.
We weren't exactly known for championing women's education back then.
Exactly. But Elizabeth had a stroke of luck, you could say.
Okay.
Catherine Parr, Henry VIII's sixth wife,
Right.
and the one who finally, outlived him,
Right.
was a strong advocate for education, particularly for women.
Interesting.
Yeah, she saw to it that Elizabeth had access to some of the most, brilliant scholars of the day.
So what did this, royal education look like? I mean, were we talking finishing school etiquette or something far more rigorous?
Oh, this was no mere etiquette class, Kevin. Elizabeth was drilled in languages. Latin, Greek, French, Italian, fluent in all of them.
Oh, my God.
And that was just the beginning.
Really?
History, philosophy, rhetoric, theology, even political theory.
Wow.
Her tutors really, pushed her intellectually, and she clearly thrived on it.
Wow. That's impressive even by today's standards. Makes you wonder, did Elizabeth's tutors, realize they were shaping the mind of a future queen?
Perhaps they had their suspicions, but more importantly, this education instilled in Elizabeth a love of learning,
Right.
a sharp wit, and an ability to, really dissect complex arguments.
Yeah.
Skills that, as we'll see, proved invaluable later on.
So we've got this incredibly intelligent, resilient young woman emerging from this tumultuous childhood. But of course, the drama of the Tudor dynasty was far from over.
Oh, no.
Henry VIII finally gets his long-awaited son, Edward VI.
Yes.
Right.
But tragedy strikes again.
Of course.
Edward, a sickly child, comes to the throne at the tender age of 9
Right.
and reigns for only 6 years before succumbing to illness.
And during Edward's brief reign, England takes another swing on the religious roller coaster, right?
You could say that. Edward VI was a fervent Protestant,
Okay.
and under his guidance, England moved further away from Catholicism.
Right.
This was a time when religion and politics were, deeply intertwined.
Right.
The changes were swift, and the stakes were incredibly high.
So during all this religious back and forth,
Yeah.
where does Elizabeth fit in?
Yeah.
What's her life like as her half-brother takes the throne?
It's a precarious time for her.
Yeah.
She's still seen as illegitimate by some.
Right.
And her Protestant leanings, thanks in part to Catherine Parr's influence,
Right.
made her a potential figurehead for kind of religious dissent.
Oh, wow.
Elizabeth had to tread carefully,
Yeah.
all too aware that one wrong move could be perceived as a threat.
It sounds like a constant game of survival.
Yes.
Even more so when Edward VI dies without an heir.
Yes.
Enter Lady Jane Grey. Right.
Precisely. This is where the Tudor line of succession gets particularly messy.
Okay.
Jane Grey was a distant relative of Henry VIII,
Okay.
a devout Protestant,
Okay.
and someone powerful factions saw as a more suitable ruler than Mary,
Right.
Henry's eldest daughter.
And Mary, of course, being a devout Catholic, must have made the religious divide even more, explosive.
Absolutely. Mary had powerful allies, though, and she wasn't about to let the throne just slip away.
Yeah.
The attempt to install Lady Jane Grey as queen was short-lived, a mere 9 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Talk about a short-lived reign. It really highlights how quickly fortunes can change in the Tudor court.
It really does. And for Elizabeth, Mary's ascension to the throne was a turning point, though not necessarily in a good way.
Right.
Remember, this is her Catholic half-sister,
Yeah.
who is now fiercely set on restoring Catholicism in England.
Right.
Anyone perceived as an obstacle, even family, was in danger.
And Elizabeth, with her Protestant upbringing and her claim to the throne, must have been, public enemy number one.
You can say that again. And Mary's fears weren't entirely unfounded.
Okay.
Remember the Wyatt Rebellion?
Ah, yes. That sounds more like the title of a historical thriller than a real event.
It was a chaotic time.
Yeah.
Essentially, a group of rebels rose up against Mary I,
Right.
fueled by a potent mix of kind of religious anxieties and fears of Spanish influence.
Okay.
You see, Mary was planning to marry Philip II of Spain,
Right.
a staunch Catholic king.
Right.
The rebels saw this union as a direct threat to England's, religious and political freedom.
Right.
They wanted to depose Mary and prevent the marriage at all costs.
And in the midst of this rebellion, Elizabeth somehow gets caught in the crossfire.
Exactly. Rumors and accusations flew that she was secretly involved in the plot.
Wow.
Now, to this day, historians debate whether there's any truth to these allegations.
Right.
But what's important is that Mary, or at least those around her, saw Elizabeth as a potential figurehead for the rebellion.
Right.
And that was enough to seal her fate, at least temporarily. Mary had Elizabeth imprisoned in the Tower of London,
Oh, wow.
the same place where their own mother had been executed. It's hard to imagine the fear, the sense of history repeating itself that Elizabeth must have felt during those months of confinement.
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
To be trapped in that place, knowing your own family sees you as an enemy of the crown,
Right.
really puts Elizabeth's resilience into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But how does she escape this terrifying situation? Mary was clearly suspicious, if not outright paranoid, about Elizabeth's claim to the throne.
You're right. Mary's reign was marked by, a deep-seated fear of plots and rebellions.
Right.
And Elizabeth, whether she liked it or not, represented a very real threat. But Elizabeth was also incredibly clever.
Okay.
During her time in the Tower, she maintained a delicate balancing act. Outwardly, she showed obedience to Mary,
Right.
never directly challenging her authority. But at the same time, she carefully cultivated her image, reminding people of her intelligence, her grace,
Okay.
and her connection to her father, Henry VIII.
So it was a strategic game of survival.
Yes.
Lay low, but don't fade into obscurity.
Exactly.
Did Mary ever fully believe in Elizabeth's innocence? Or was it more a case of, political expediency?
Yeah.
Would executing Elizabeth have sparked more unrest than it quelled?
It's hard to say for sure what was going on in Mary's mind, but
Okay.
you're right.
Right.
Executing a popular figure like Elizabeth, even under suspicion of treason, was a risky move. Mary's reign was already quite turbulent, and the
Okay.
last thing she needed was to make Elizabeth a martyr for the Protestant cause.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Elizabeth emerges from the Tower, forever marked by that experience, but alive.
Yeah.
Feels like a lifetime of drama packed into those few years.
I know.
But fate, as they say, had other plans.
Indeed. In 1558, Mary I died, childless.
Wow.
And just like that, the throne passed to Elizabeth.
It's almost impossible to grasp the mix of emotions she must have felt.
Right.
Relief, of course, but also grief for her half-sister and this immense weight of responsibility now thrust upon her
Absolutely.
at just 25 years old, having endured imprisonment and navigating the treacherous currents of the Tudor court.
Right.
Elizabeth becomes Queen of England.
She does.
Incredible moment. All those years of uncertainty of constantly watching her back led to this.
And it wasn't just a personal victory, was it?
Right.
For many in England, particularly those who had suffered under Mary's attempts to reinstate Catholicism, Elizabeth's ascension must have felt like a new dawn.
Yeah.
She represented hope for stability, for religious tolerance, and for a return to the legacy of her father, Henry VIII.
It's amazing how she seemingly transformed, overnight, from a potential prisoner to the most powerful person in England.
Right.
What a turnaround.
And what strikes me is how she stepped into the role with such poise.
Yeah.
And, dare I say it, a bit of swagger?
Yeah.
She had learned from the very best, or perhaps more accurately from the very worst.
Right.
About the dangers of power, the importance of strategy, and the fickle nature of the court.
As we look back at Elizabeth I's incredible reign, the era we now call the Elizabethan Age,
right,
we have to remember that it wasn't some, preordained destiny.
No.
It was built upon a foundation of loss, uncertainty, and constant threat.
Yes.
She truly earned her place in history.
Absolutely, and that's what makes her story so captivating.
Right.
Well, so relevant even today.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth I's life is a testament to resilience, to the power of education, and to the complexities of family and power.
She's like the ultimate case study in leadership under pressure.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves us with so much to consider.
Right.
How did those early experiences, those brushes with death, shape her decisions as queen?
Yeah.
Did she carry the weight of her mother's execution and her own imprisonment with her as she ruled?
Right.
And how did she manage to navigate the religious tensions that continued to simmer throughout her reign?
These are fascinating questions, Jenny, and ones I'll definitely be pondering.
Yeah.
Thank you for guiding us through this incredible journey through history.
The pleasure was all mine, Kevin.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on History Rewind.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the past. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the love of history alive.